You either die young as the hero, or you live long enough to find yourself as the villain. Nintendo has found themselves, at least in my eyes, as the villain. And sure, the recent Palworld and in the very recent times, like as of the recording of this video, 387 incident with the US Patent Office, where the government decided to show its corruption and grant patent 12403-397 to Nintendo. We'll get into that a little bit later. It's added to my disdain of Nintendo that's been brewing for a really, really long time. It started off with Pokemon Uranium. Now, I do understand that, they need to protect their brand and their IP, and Pokemon Uranium obviously wasn't made by the Pokemon Company or Nintendo, and it was a fan-made game, so they do need to protect their name, because if they don't, then they can find themselves in a situation where realistically they lose control of their trademark. So I get that, and my memory's a bit fuzzy. You can get a hold of the game now. I don't know what all took place with that scenario because I didn't follow it super closely. This was a decade ago, so I was a little upset back then, and it just adds to the reason why I see Nintendo as a curse word in my house. Then we had the 562 controversy, where Game Jolt was ordered to take down 562 fan-made games related to Nintendo. Okay, we're in 2016 still. Like, I get it. You have to protect your IP. But I mean, games being made, fan-made games are a love song to the brands that people enjoy and love. Nintendo, you're really kind of missing the point here. But I get it. Nintendo, you're protecting yourself from potential bad representation of yourself in the market. Totally understand. But then we get over to 2018 with Love ROMs. Listen, regardless of how you feel about, ROMs or torrents, things like that, there is a place for them. Having the ability to preserve games, the artwork that are games, is very important. It's critical to the longevity of being able to share these experiences with younger audiences as they come around and show them what's loved. The biggest thing that I have to say towards that whole scenario is that Nintendo themselves didn't even have a lot of the actual games that that are older. They pulled ROMs and put them on the Switch, inside of the Nintendo Switch. There is the whole Nintendo emulator, right? And they pulled the ROMs from ROM sites. They didn't even necessarily have their own game, at least not in a way that could, at least seemingly didn't have their own games. They didn't have their own data. So how could they have shared it? It's just one of those things. As a millennial, I look at it and say, this is something that we did back in the day. Whether it's right or wrong, I'm not here to argue that. But games preservation is important. A lot of the games that I played, Nintendo does not make available. They do not exist. Things that I enjoyed with my cousins aren't there. Sure, you can get a hold of the Mario series. That's great. But it wasn't until recently that I could get a hold of the original Turok. And that was a blast with my friends, hunting down dinosaurs and having fun. Just, okay, it's starting to eat at me here a little bit. We're in 2018, and I'm gonna go through the general concept here, because these things are childhoods, they're memories, and part of nostalgia is being able to go back and just remember the good times, because your brain doesn't tend to want to remember the bad. Now let's get into the concept of a hacker named Gary Bowser. Gary Bowser was known, and not the greatest of things, but in 2021, Gary Bowser was ordered to pay $14 million to Nintendo and charged with, I believe, 5 felonies. He was part of Team Executor, and Team Executor was really, really good at being able to crack games or crack Nintendo's consoles. They did a fantastic job at making the ability for modification of hardware to be able to own your hardware, regardless of patent infringements or anything like that. If you can't tear it apart, if you can't modify it, it's not yours. That's just my millennial, I guess, mindset. My previous, back in the day, nowhere close to it at all now, hacker mindset that I had back in the day, and I still carry now. If I can't build it myself, if I can't customize it to the way that I want it to be, then it's not mine. He was ordered to pay $14 million and charged with multiple felonies for, from what I understand and what I remember, was him just managing a website and putting articles up and writing. They used his name, the fact that he was well known, as a piece of marketing tool. He wasn't actually involved in any of the modification. And if you want to know a little bit more about that story, I'm going to put down in the link in the description. There's going to be a Darknet Diaries episode where he talks with Jack Resider. And then we're at current, right? 397 and 387. Those are two patents that were issued to Nintendo. One of them being related to how a creature is summoned to either follow or immediately battle another creature that has been summoned or is in the world. And the other one has to do with riding objects, mounts, and how you automatically get onto a mount. Listen, this whole scenario with Pocket Pair, with Palworld, has really tainted my view on Nintendo. I very much so would put up with the bullshit. I would ignore, hey, writing off as they're protecting their IP. Going after an elderly man who arguably wasn't actually involved in breaking anything. He just managed a website. Going after him, granted, he wasn't a perfect person, and charging him $14 million so this way he's the fall guy, and pulling him from the Dominican Republic when he's a Canadian national and charging him in the United States. Then we have Palworld, and they are literally making up patents as it goes, so this way they can fight against Pocket Pair and go against a series that is extremely beloved in its very, very infant state that it is now. Nintendo has a history of abuse, a history of abuse of their audience, of their fans, a history of abuse of their organizations that are kind of not even necessarily connected. What was it? I can't remember what year it was, but I believe it was like 2019. They went after a grocery store called Mario's because Mario. Are you fucking kidding me? The hell is wrong with you people? Great, Mario isn't your name. Mario is a name that already existed. Just like the concept of getting onto a mount, just like the concept of spawning in a creature, just like the concept of battling creatures with each other, just like the concept of triggering events. All of this shit, Nintendo's trying to go after Palworld for. And on my side of it, as somebody that loved Nintendo, I bought in the middle of a pandemic. I went around and hunted down Nintendo Switches for my children, paying money that I shouldn't have to pay to, make sure that my kids had something that was beloved, that they could enjoy, that they could love. I hunted these things down so this way they could share in the joy in the middle of a pandemic. I didn't pay scalpers online. I went around and drove to multiple cities to find the Best Buy or the Target or the GameStop that they were at so I could get all four of my kids. a Nintendo Switch. Whichever Nintendo Switch really fit what they wanted, so this way they can enjoy the games that they played. And it has taken me with all of these scenarios, because this is something that has been brewing for a long time. It's taken me to a point where fuck Nintendo. Nintendo is a curse word to me. Anytime I see something about Nintendo doing something, I have complete disregard and disdain for it, and it's Nintendo's fault. Nintendo created that. No one else did that. Pokemon Emerald or Uranium didn't destroy Nintendo's image. Nintendo destroyed Nintendo's image. Nintendo made it to where I hate them. Nintendo made it to where I do not care if people steal their games. Nintendo created a monster on their own end, where if somebody goes off and says, hey, I was thinking about XYZ or doing this mod to my Switch, absolutely. If you have any questions, let me know. Because I learned how to modify my own Switch for my own personal use, didn't do anything illegal, didn't steal anything. Because I absolutely hated Nintendo, and they can go fuck themselves. Nintendo degraded their own market value. And I don't care. I don't care that they've destroyed themselves. Because if they were able to be destroyed so easily, at least in my eyes, and I know I'm not the only one that sees it this way, if they were able to destroy themselves, at least in my eyes, then they done did a bunch of stupid shit on the way. Hell, there was a time where they had the creator program and whatnot with Nintendo, and they had removed it because it was causing a negative brand image. But I also remember Wolfden going through his whole situation where he was kicked out of the Nintendo creator program before it was actually, I believe that's the right order, before it was actually, discontinued. And he still loves Nintendo. He still makes a bunch of content related to Nintendo, testing longevity of hardware and how long it takes for burn-in on an OLED display, things like that. I don't get a chance to watch too much. I try to avoid YouTube because I make content for YouTube. But here's the thing. Nintendo did that. Nintendo corrupted themselves. They went after an elderly man because they couldn't get a hold of the other guys because they were in countries that didn't have the same viewpoints on copyright. Nintendo chose to be anti-consumer. Nintendo's own practices are tearing them apart. And while it is sad, I would rather them collapse and not be a thing anymore. So this way, maybe we can cherry pick the good parts about Nintendo and tell our grandchildren about how there used to be a time when Nintendo, and have it be the fairy tale. The crap dad who, sold drugs and robbed the convenience store, but in his kid's eyes, after he got mauled down by like 12 cops, he was the greatest man ever. He was the most gentle man ever, telling the story. I realize that's probably, shows my age on how, people used to do things. I loved Nintendo. I enjoyed the games. I fondly remember playing Mario 64 at a friend's house while my mom got her nails done and hung out with the ladies. I fondly remember going to my cousins, and while we had, Christmas or Thanksgiving, sitting in the basement or sitting upstairs in the, attic and playing on, an NES, an SNES, and enjoying games and watching my cousins go through and do some of the wildest and craziest things possible that I thought they were awe-inspiring. I mean, it's just a video game, but, the way that they were able to beat it in that way, before actually, what's it called? Speedrunning. There we go. Before speedrunning was like something I ever knew about, I watched my cousins who were older than me speedrun Mario and write down times and see who could compete fastest. Nintendo was fundamental to my love of technology, and they have corrupted themselves and destroyed themselves with their own greed. What are your thoughts? Leave a comment down below. Let's have a civil conversation. Do you like Nintendo? See you guys in the next one. Don't be afraid to dive on into the rift.